Hey good humans, Jason from Jubilee here at the Jubilee office. I just want to take a moment to say thank you to the Ridge wallet for sponsoring this episode. I honestly just got this wallet and I think it's incredible. I think it looks super dope, really sleek, super thin, and also really durable. It's amazing and it has a full lifetime warranty. It can hold up to 12 cards, which is a big concern sometimes I have with thin wallets, and has space for your cash as well. I highly recommend it. I've loved carrying it around. They've got over 30 different options for colors. You can have carbon fiber, burnt titanium. I honestly love it so much I might get a second one just so I can kind of switch out the colorways. There's also even a 45-day guarantee. So if you get it and you don't love it, you can always send it back for a full refund. So there is no risk. If you use our code Jubilee, you actually get 10% off. Make sure you check them out. And with Father's Day around the corner, this could be the perfect gift for your father, or honestly yourself, or your mother, anyone really. Make sure you check out Ridge Wallet. Thank you again for the sponsorship, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
I can't repeat, Ben, I love what you represent. I love it. But the fact of the matter is, like, your altruism doesn't actually hit the masses.
Mm-hmm.
Large institutional investors have lost tens of millions of dollars.
The assumption that the Reddit crowd were idiots is incorrect.
Why do you think this is important, what's happening?
There's an enormous sort of crowdsourced effort to identify forms of corruption.
In this case, it's not really sticking it to the man, it's ill-informed discussions that are being had, creating risk.
This is not going to end well when it ends, and will end very badly for the public.
They shouldn't be just willy-nilly distributing that to the four corners of the wind because somebody at their barbershop told them that they were going to make $1 million off of GameStop.
I think there's an assumption there that we aren't as astute just because we don't have whatever quote-unquote certification you want to give someone.
I'm always curious how people buy into systems broadly, especially systems like WallStreetBets, which is so based in things like racism and ableism.
But there's also some people that are doing very interesting deep dive financial evaluations. So to kind of put everyone in one basket, I feel like is a little unfair.
The surrounding message is so much more important than the money that I could be putting in my pocket right now. So I'm still holding diamond hands.
I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys, man so tough, but lines keep walking. Hot like fire on the pond, if you want to touch me, please use caution.
What's up, I'm Sade. I started my career at Goldman Sachs before moving to an alts firm in LA.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Danny. I worked in finance. I'm also been an entrepreneur for the past 10 years.
My name is Mike. I am the CSO of a CPG startup.
Hey guys, my name is Ramneek. I'm a registered investment advisor and real estate broker.
Hey guys, my name is Zach. I'm in the medical device sales space, and I also host a podcast called DIY Wealth.
My name's Ben. I'm the proud owner of several shares of GameStop, and I'm hodling until the squeezes squoze.
I have invested in meme stock. Come forward if you agree.
It might be a little obvious why we invested in the meme stock, but I definitely want to hear why you did.
Yeah, I think if you think about meme in a different way, right? So like I've invested in stocks that were like memes on my desk. Yeah, like I know this isn't going anywhere, like this is kind of a joke. I own some like random B2C companies that like I would consider like, this is like a joke, a meme stock. Nothing quite to this level.
Things do trade on social sentiment now. If you got a couple bucks that you're willing to go broke on and watch it drive all the way down to zero, why not, throw the dice on a couple of these where, Elon Musk says something and they just launch.
I think that's like something that I have qualms with in the market as a whole right now. Like if you're treating a little bit of your portfolio like that now, even if you have the overall sentiment like market goes up, like stocks go burr, you have to still be able to have that mindset of like this theoretically, like worst case scenario could go to zero.
As far as meme stocks go, I'm drawn to nailing naked short sellers. That's my whole agenda here.
Good.
So
stick to the man.
It's just insane to me that for 4 decades the SEC has failed to get control of naked short selling as an illegal practice. So the only meme stocks I'm interested in buying are the short squeeze stocks, like GameStop and AMC.
So yours is like a spite investment.
I only have GameStop right now. It's a spite investment, absolutely.
One of the things that Ben said that kind of piqued my interest is the idea that you're doing this to stick it to the man. I love the sentiment. I love what you want to accomplish. But the thing that I kind of would push back with is the fact that the man is also winning.
I agree with you that there's going to be big guy firms that profit off of the GameStop phenomenon. But I suppose as long as at least one naked short seller gets their comeuppance, I feel accomplished.
Well, and at the end of the day, too, on the forum, there were individuals that were pulling out and saying, because of this money that came into my world, I was able to pay for cancer treatment for my mother and things like that. Yeah.
But what about the people who are dying of like crazy losses? I feel like for every meme millionaire that WallStreetBets makes,
I'm not talking about even millionaires though, just.
But it's non-verified, non-backed up information. Granted, Reddit has their thumbs up platform, and the anonymity that they provide their users does provide a level of access and freedom. But you're still receiving information that has not been verified, that doesn't necessarily have the analytics to back it up.
So why does WebMD exist then? You're not going to a doctor, you're not verifying anything right now, but you're going and doing your own due diligence on why you might be sick or how you're feeling.
Of course, but you're doing it on actual factual information, diseases, anatomy, physiology, and you're not doing it based upon an artificially inflated market that can be influenced by so many different realms.
Right, but one of the things is with the Reddit forum, to me, it's just theory crafting. It's just people theory crafting their own due diligence and putting their opinion behind it. If someone takes that seriously and executes against it, the risk is on them to do that.
In this space here, I agree with you. But do you think your average consumer that's out there that is investing based upon this movement is doing that same due diligence, that has that same information?
Absolutely not. But at what point is it fair for me to be hindered on my acquiring of knowledge because someone else is choosing to be stupid, careless, and ignorant?
WallStreetBets is a movement.
As is sort of my agenda here, I think WallStreetBets is an incredible movement for raising awareness about a litany of unfair practices at the highest levels of the stock market. Number one, this whole GameStop thing started because of an illegal practice called naked short selling. I would say it's also a movement of crowdsourcing this enormous amount of investment knowledge and distributing it to an enormous pool of, there's 10 million subscribers now.
Do you think the 10 million actually get that knowledge?
No, not all of them, but...
I don't think 1% of them do. That's kind of my whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Like, I can't repeat, Ben, I love what you represent. I love it. But the fact of the matter is, like, your altruism doesn't actually hit the masses. I believe WallStreetBets is a movement kind of like Nazism and communism and all these other bad movements.
Good.
I think it's a terrible movement. Yeah.
Whoa. Nazism and communism. I have a lot of qualms with being put in one bucket.
We had more of a positive connotation with the movement. You drug it all the way over to another extreme.
Let me be completely candid. I was being facetious.
Okay,
I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that bad. I'm not okay with the fact that the main losers aren't the guys you're trying to like screw out of this like terrible unethical practices.
Melvin Capital lost what?
But they immediately got bailed out by Citadel.
And how many more giant conglomerate firms made bazillions of dollars while my good friends lost $1,000 here, $10,000 here? I don't want people like you guys, like us, losing money.
So I guess on a scale though, so you have this forum where people go around and pitch around decent ideas, whether great due diligence or absolutely none was done. And then you have, you remember a couple years ago, Wells Fargo creating the fake bank accounts? Like
terrible.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Why is there so much laser focus on accountability on this, ragtag crew of forums and absolutely nothing changed on the Wells Fargo spectrum?
I'm there with you.
What's happening here is we're conflating two different things. Reddit is a forum and a platform that's aggregating sentiment. It is not one thing. Like a hedge fund with one goal is to make money off some niche is one thing. Reddit is just a collection of lots of different sentiments. Now, is that a movement in itself? No. Has it created byproducts that are exposing things that are maybe not in the investor's interest? I would say yes. And then another thing is Robinhood. Like, they're one of the genius of Robinhood has been they've gamified investing. And it's played into a narrative that isn't true, which people already have an inclination to interpret investing as gambling. And that's not what investing is about.
Right.
Right?
No, so I agree with
Exactly.
you. I agree
And
with you.
you know what, I 100% agree with you there. But if you look at what's going on, the amount of risk that we have created just by these movements and allowing this type of influence to be made within our financial space, we don't even understand the repercussions of that.
But at the end of the day,
I think
the underlying thing is earnings per share, revenue, how much money you can make. And come hell or high water, that's the game of the capitalistic free market systems.
But if it leads to the downfall and bankruptcy of companies or institutional investors and companies falling out, going into bankruptcy, what type of instability does that create within not only our local economic environment, but on a global scale?
Are you actually concerned that could happen and that would be catastrophic for the average American?
No, not for the average American, but I think the average American who is taking their stimulus package and investing it into GameStop and realistically doesn't have the funds to be genuinely investing and they need to be building those capital assets, I think that's more what's at risk in this movement and essentially what the problem is and the economic fallout.
Do you think, this is like a you question, like how much money was donated to the Fosse Gorilla Fund? Do you know, like approximately?
Oh, I mean,
Not to like put you on the spot, because you're sure.
I believe it was in the millions, not
Right, like-
in the thousands.
Like, I would even argue, like, that donation alone, like, as someone who doesn't really like Wall Street Bets as a space, I would even argue, like, that alone was a movement of itself. Not like a big, like, not like, oh, like, Occupy Wall Street, not Black Lives Matter, nothing like that. But, like, the fact is that people did turn around and were like, hey, like, we said this is something that we're doing for good, and, like, here's a direct impact. The racial undertones and like ableism, I think, is a little iffy, and like Wall Street Bets pioneering gorillas as their mascot, I think, leads to a lot of icky moments. As someone who left Wall Street because someone black was called a gorilla, I think it's a lot of fun,
Oh, wow.
full circle moment. But like, I think even that you can be like, yeah, like there's underlying, we want to do good as a movement.
All investors should have access to the same type of tools and resources.
I wish I had the same information as those Congress people who went and sold all their stocks right before Trump announced the pandemic to the public.
Politics, political structure, level of information based upon national security, kind of hard to exchange when you're working within a government agency. If they made those moves, we can talk about the ethics of that later. The same information that your trading houses had was the same information that was out there to the individual investor at that time.
Possibly.
I don't think, I disagree with that. I wholeheartedly believe in reality. We live in a plutocracy right now. Do you know what a plutocracy is?
I do.
So the government is controlled for and manipulated and used for by the wealthy. So I think there is a level of green privilege and plutocracy, and with having lots of money and power, there is certain information that's streamlined to people in higher positions than your average person. Therefore, all of the tools aren't being given to everyone equally on a playing field.
When it comes to what the institutional houses realistically have, when it comes to the information, the analytics, and the actual statistics that are out there and available, they are available to the general public.
Well, you say that, but then Enron would literally make calls to Wall Street and tell them to do blackouts in California, and they would manipulate the stock price, and then they would short it and buy it when it would dump it, when it would tank and go up. How can you sit there and go, that's an equal level of information being given to everyone?
Is that information? But is that information or ethics? It's essentially the same thing when you go to the doctor. Okay, everything that he knows is accessible online to you. You can research it, you can WebMD it, you can actually buy the same medical books that he was there.
Correct.
Okay, at the end of the day, it's a matter of whether you're going to go in there and do the work.
But at the end of the day, it also matters about the timeline. If I take the time to do the due diligence, even though he has all that information, and it's the difference between getting the proper cancer treatment 2 weeks down the road or immediately, that's vital information that that person needed to know in order to get the treatment.
Exactly.
Trading is...
So you're highlighting that a subject matter expert should realistically have more access to the information in a more time-efficient manner than a layman.
Well, it's not time efficient. They just took the time to do it.
I see how you're positioning that, but at the end of the day, if you're someone that has enough knowledge to utilize the information just as efficiently, why do I have to wait because you have a certification, or because you have a doctorate, or because you have higher education?
For the same reason you can't fly a plane. You're not qualified, you didn't do the work, you're not there.
That's fine, but would you agree there's very terrible pilots and there's very good pilots?
Of course, there are, but they're all qualified, they're all certified, and they've all done the work to get there.
As per usual, I have so much to say.
I was about to say, I could feel you. I could feel you over there.
Thank you. People do have equal access to information, and like, I'm not against equitable information. I actually think that's like where I did agree. I don't agree that everyone should have the same tools.
Why not?
Same.
As someone who's like traded on a lot of those platforms, I don't think the average investor like needs to be making $1 million pars deals. And like, if that platform is free, like, people can't do that.
There's a degree of responsibility that we, being a little bit more informed, having more insight into the process, should take to protect our fellow man who doesn't have that same level of information, that same level of knowledge. Because my concern is that the information that's being pushed is barbershop information.
Right.
And we're pushing that as if it were legitimate, verified, valuable information.
In some cases, it's extremely well thought out research. In some cases.
Sure, absolutely. But it's just dangerous. I know people personally, like my family has lost quite a bit of money because of barbershop information. If our approach is let's just deregulate everything, not care about who gets hurt, then a lot of people who don't have the same privilege of information and knowledge aren't going to approach it properly and ethically or intelligently.
And so to the flip side of your coin, I come from a very fragmented familial situation. My mother and my father, they'll probably have to work until they die because they didn't fundamentally understand financial concepts to leverage themselves into a situation where they reach early retirement or financial freedom or whatever. But because there has been a huge amount of information made available to me, and I have actively made those choices, whether I find it through WallStreetBets or wherever else, I've put myself in a very empowered position in order to achieve the end goal of an earlier retirement or financial freedom.
We're not looking to take away the opportunity at all. We're looking to just make sure people know what they're getting into. And I know, like, it seems like, well, you know, it's their fault if they get involved and they're not doing it correctly. But we have precautions all throughout society, whether it's, gun laws aren't exactly the best example, but like driver's licenses, you know, like people buy cigarettes
at the end of the day,
before 18.
Suicides still happen, you know, and gun violence still happens.
But we still have precautions and we have tools to protect those people.
But at the end of the day, can you go represent yourself when you purchase your home? Do you have to have a real estate agent?
No.
No, but like, you don't have to have a real
So why are we putting such a focus and emphasis on you have to be this professional to use XYZ?
But like, I've never heard of someone like representing themselves in court and everyone being like, that is a great plan.
Right, and that's a good example. I statistically, would I represent myself in court? No. But do I have the option to? Yes.
But like, you have the option.
That's what I
have the
want.
option to be in these systems. Like, we're not saying that that's not true. But like, there is things that come with being licensed and being a professional in a space.
Shorting stocks is a legitimate and fair practice.
Guys, look at us.
Being anything to say?
Well,
I was trying to think of an example where it would be considered not a fair practice.
It's no different than going out into nature and watching something that's sick and dying get eaten by lions. Like, that's just part of the process.
But I think naked short selling has been restricted since like 2014 or something.
Yeah.
Like, so that's kind of out of the market.
like, if you're gonna call it naked shorts, I think you have to call it a lot of other like Wall Street practices. And I think a lot of these things are like
Good, yes.
like
Yes, let's do
like,
that.
as you should
You're
be doing.
absolutely not
like
wrong.
as you should be doing, but like, I think to be like, it's just naked shorts. We've identified like the issue, and it's
Like,
like
that's the hard
like,
point.
I would
yeah.
like, let's not.
A lot of the outrage was generated by this feeling that predatory short sellers were trying to put GameStop out of business prior to the time when it would naturally die. When predatory short sellers engage in naked short selling to put a company out of business, there's nothing natural like a lion killing a deer about that. That is.
But they're not going after companies like Amazon.
Right, like-
they're going
Like,
after companies that clearly the fundamentals are looking
like,
a little shaky.
GameStop is a
GameStop
brick
is-
and mortar retail video game seller.
People on Reddit see the future of GameStop very much as a new company. as a company with a new vision that will be modeled after Chewy and will be more internet-based and less brick-and-mortar based.
Right, but like, why? I just don't think that many people have enough understanding even to be like doing this remotely responsibly.
The damage done to hedge funds by WallStreetBets was deserved.
There have been a lot of celebrities who have chimed in on the GameStop and AMC short squeezes, and one of them struck a chord with me, which was one of the Shark Tank guys, Kevin O'Leary. He said, if you're stupid enough to short a stock over 100%, then you deserve whatever happens to you. I am delighted to see them pay financially for playing dirty in the most important game in the universe, which is the game of American capitalism.
Your call.
I'll take the fall.
Fair enough.
This time.
We'll keep changing it up.
I started immediately like identifying with it, and I haven't been able to properly articulate why yet, but initially in my gut, I heard the word deserved. I don't agree with that word. That's why I didn't come to the table.
I also tried to ask myself, did they deserve, that's like saying, does any investor deserve the risk they're taking?
And I think a lot of people get behind the initial statement that was said was because this is very much turned into a David and Goliath narrative.
But that's the thing.
Wait.
It's a narrative.
Correct.
You know, we say like deserve, not deserve, but the question is what damage?
Wait, so that was my, like,
Right,
that was the
yeah.
word that I'm hung up on. Is like, what damage do we really think happened to hedge funds?
It's a symbolism as, look, you guys all had this cushy job, you had billions you were managing, now you don't, some of you are out.
Do you really think there was a lot of squirming? When you look at the people that were really vested in that company, do you think they really took the losses that you think they did? Or do you think they're riding that golden parachute laughing at the narrative that's going out?
There's other repercussions besides just the losses on AMC and GameStop, which would be an enormous amount of public pressure on the SEC to enforce the rules that they already have that have been poorly enforced. That is potentially a repercussion that will affect the day-to-day lives of hedge funds.
Now you're speaking my language, because when you talk about it like we've already won the war, that's when I'm like, first of all, I'm kind of on your side, and moreover, when we're like, oh, we made him square and we're winning here, I'm like, no, you haven't even started the game.
I think that there's about 10 million Redditors who are going to hang on to this forever, and a lot of us are motivated by the grudge we still feel from the lack of justice during the 2008 fiasco, let's call it.
Yeah,
one guy went to jail after the collusion that led to the mortgage-backed security crisis. It's hard to pin the idea that people involved in the mortgage-backed security crisis were aware that what they were doing at every point along the way was going to lead to a global financial crisis and deaths of poverty. But if you could prove that, I would say they would be guilty of mass murder.
I just don't think people care.
But essentially, how many people still care about that issue
Right.
today?
What WallStreetBets did, the exposures and the blind spots in our financial system in a whole, there are a few.
Of course.
What you have to do is, well, let's take a few. What we have to do is you have to understand what those are, and you have to mobilize, and you have to create a situation where there's actual change on the books. If you just hold GameStop, it's not going to change anything. You gotta. This was an illustration of some of the blind spots, and it has to mobilize into a more social event in terms of representatives and leaders that say, you know what, there are some things that the financial institutions have a blind spot on, and we have to do some reforms.
You definitely have the communication tool and the movement and passion to do so, but realistically, there's a staying power.
I guarantee you that I personally have the power to hold a grudge for the rest of my life.
I respect that. I feel that.
I'm right there with you.
I feel that.
And I believe there's about 10 million Redditors who equally are going to hold this grudge, maybe not forever,
I
but
think
for
you're
a very
too smart.
long
I think
time.
you're too smart and too engaged.
Well,
I think that's the issue with like this group of people.
You're gonna have to take that grudge and mobilize it into actual social change, and that comes from leadership,
Right.
and that comes from new elected officials. So you gotta crosswalk that into actual stuff.
All right.
Shake, we did it. We did it.
Oh, this is so good. Now that was so rude.
Bring it in. Absolutely.
Dude.